My parents told me, "A bike's all you deserve. You'll never go far." Then bought my sister a brand new car and mocked me before everyone. They didn't see what was coming next. I remember a time when my parents gifted my sister, Haley, a brand new BMW for graduation. Meanwhile, I got a rusty old bicycle and these chilling words, "This is enough for you, Megan, because you're not going anywhere in life." Can you imagine that? But what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly have imagined, was that one day I'd drive past their house in a Bentley worth more than their entire life savings. And I'm going to tell you exactly how that happened. Growing up in this picture-perfect Boston suburb, our family looked like a postcard from the outside. My dad, Richard Wilson, a respected cardiologist, and my mom, Barbara, with her successful psychology practice. We lived in this gorgeous colonial house with manicured lawns and luxury cars in the driveway, the epitome of the American dream, right? But behind those closed doors, it was a completely different story. There was a hierarchy, and my younger sister, Haley, always ranked above me. Haley, 3 years my junior, had decided early on to follow in our father's footsteps into medicine. And that, right there, was her golden ticket to our parents' hearts. I still vividly recall my 10th birthday. I got a stack of hand-me-down clothes. Haley, whose birthday it wasn't, got a brand new microscope to encourage her scientific mind. The message was painfully clear even then. Her potential merited investment. Mine did not. See, unlike Haley, with her straight A's and her perfect adherence to our parents' life plan, I was drawn to business and technology. When I was just 12, I set up a little website, designing custom birthday cards for neighbors, charging $5 a pop. My dad just dismissed it as playing around on the computer. My mom worried I was developing an unhealthy fixation with money. Entrepreneurs are just gamblers in business suits. My father would lecture. Medicine and law are the only reliable paths to success. High school only widened the chasm between us. Haley joined the debate team and science club, activities my parents practically built their social lives around. Me, I founded a small business club that met during lunch because I couldn't even get a faculty sponsor. I was selling custom phone cases online, making nearly $200 a month, which was a fortune to me back then. But my parents, they considered it a distraction from real academics. During Haley's junior year, she won a regional science competition. My parents threw this elaborate party, inviting everyone they knew. That same month, I was featured in a local newspaper for my expanding online business. They didn't even hang the article on the refrigerator. "It's just a phase," my mother told a neighbor who mentioned seeing my name. "We're hoping she grows out of it and considers something more stable." The stark contrast continued into our graduations. For Haley's ceremony, they hired a professional photographer and hosted a catered garden party. My graduation, a quick dinner at a chain restaurant where my dad spent most of the time on his phone, reviewing patient files. And the gifts. Haley received a white gold watch worth thousands. I got a $25 Amazon gift card with a half-joking comment, "Maybe you can find some business books to read before college." Here's the thing, though. I never resented Haley. She was just doing what she was conditioned to do. Sometimes, when our parents weren't around, she'd actually express genuine interest in my ventures or admit feeling crushed by their expectations. "They have my whole life mapped out," she confessed once. "Sometimes I wonder if I even want to be a doctor, or if I'm just afraid to disappoint them." Me, I'd long ago accepted that disappointment was all I could offer them. But instead of breaking me, their dismissal ignited a fire. It fueled my determination to prove them wrong. While they poured everything into Haley, I was quietly building resilience, self-reliance, and a thick skin. By the time I finished high school, I had nearly $5,000 saved for my ventures and a portfolio of small business projects. While my parents fretted over which prestigious pre-med program would best position Haley for Harvard Medical School, I researched state colleges with strong entrepreneurship programs that I could actually afford on my own. "You're really going to State University?" my mother asked incredulously. "Even with your grades, you could have aimed higher." What she failed to understand was that I wasn't aiming lower. I was aiming differently. I had a plan, and for the first time in my life, I was grateful they weren't interested enough to interfere with it. My first semester at State University was a crash course in self-sufficiency. Haley moved into a fully furnished luxury apartment near her Ivy League campus, all paid for by our parents. Me. I juggled a roommate in a cramped dorm, a part-time job at the campus coffee shop, and a weekend gig doing data entry. My parents covered Haley's tuition, meal plan, textbooks, even a monthly allowance. I pieced together scholarships, student loans, and my own earnings. The contrast was stark, but surprisingly, I found freedom in their neglect. "We're worried about your focus," my father said during one of our infrequent phone calls. "Your sister is already conducting research with one of the department heads. What exactly are you doing with your time?" What I was doing was laying the groundwork for my future. While officially studying business administration, I was teaching myself coding online, networking with tech entrepreneurs, and building my online presence. By sophomore year, I transformed my custom product business into Personalize It, a small e-commerce site selling personalized merchandise to campus organizations. Fraternities, sororities, student clubs ordered custom t-shirts, mugs, and banners through my platform. I managed it all between classes and coffee shop shifts. The business cleared nearly $1,000 in profit each month. Not life-changing money, but enough to cut back my hours and reinvest in better equipment. I felt this quiet pride watching my site visitor numbers grow, even if I had no one to share the milestone with. My big breakthrough came midway through junior year when I took an advanced entrepreneurship seminar taught by Sarah Jenkins, a former tech executive who had successfully launched and sold 2 startups. After I presented my business to the class, Sarah asked me to stay behind. "You've built something real here," she said, scrolling through my website. "But you're thinking too small. This platform could serve more than just college organizations." Sarah became the mentor I'd never had. She challenged me to think bigger, connected me with her network, and most importantly, treated my ambitions as legitimate. Under her guidance, I expanded to serve small businesses and community organizations beyond campus. "You have an intuitive understanding of what small business owners need," she observed. "That's something you can't teach. You either get it or you don't." The contrast between Sarah's mentorship and my parents' dismissal was just everything. While they continued to shower attention and resources on Haley, sending her to medical conferences and funding international volunteer opportunities that would look good on her residency applications, I was quietly building something sustainable. Christmas break during junior year brought the divide into painful focus. At our extended family gathering, my parents spent the entire evening updating relatives on Haley's impressive medical school accomplishments. "She's already co-authored a research paper," my father announced proudly. "The department chair says she has the potential to revolutionize cardiology research." When my aunt politely asked about my studies, my mother's response was telling. "Oh, Megan's still doing that online shop thing," she said with a dismissive wave. "It's a hobby that keeps her busy between classes." "It's actually a registered business now," I corrected quietly. "We did over $30,000 in sales last quarter." My father chuckled. "Don't get too attached to it, sweetheart. These internet businesses come and go. You'll need a real job once you graduate." I bit my tongue, knowing arguing would only lead to another lecture. That evening, I answered customer emails and finalized designs for a new product line. By senior year, Personalize It had grown to require 3 part-time student employees. We were clearing $10,000 monthly in revenue with healthy profit margins. Sarah helped me secure a small business grant that allowed me to improve our website and automate some production processes. "You're positioned for significant growth post-graduation," Sarah told me. "Have you thought about seeking investors?" I had, in fact. I was already preparing a pitch deck for angel investors. The business had proven its concept and demonstrated consistent growth. With additional capital, I could expand. As graduation approached, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. While my classmates worried about entry-level jobs, I was preparing to transition from student entrepreneur to full-time CEO. The path was uncertain, but I felt confident. What I didn't anticipate was how dramatically the dynamics with my family would change, or how that rusty bicycle would become the ultimate catalyst. Haley's medical school graduation fell 3 weeks after my own. My graduation had warranted only a brief Sunday lunch with my parents, where they reminded me to apply for real jobs as a backup. Haley's celebration was planned with military precision. My parents rented a private room at an upscale Boston restaurant, invited family from across the country, and commissioned a professional photographer. The invitation specified formal attire and hinted at a special surprise. Despite our complicated history, I was genuinely happy for my sister. Medical school had been grueling. I'd heard enough of her late-night phone calls to know she'd struggled. I decided to put aside my frustrations with our parents and focus on supporting Haley. I even had good news of my own to share. Personalize had secured its first round of angel investment, $75,000 from a local business owner who believed in our growth potential. It wasn't life-changing money, but it validated my business model and would allow me to lease a small commercial space. The afternoon of the celebration, I arrived early to help set up, wearing a new dress I'd splurged on. My mother immediately commented, "That's interesting," eyeing my outfit. "We're going for elegant tonight, dear." I bit back a retort and focused on arranging centerpieces. By 6, the room was packed. Haley arrived to applause, looking simultaneously exhausted and elated. "Dr. Haley Wilson," my father announced proudly, raising a champagne flute. The newest physician in the family tradition. Toast after toast followed, each more effusive than the last. I clapped sincerely, even as I noted that no one had acknowledged my graduation just 3 weeks prior. After dinner, my father clinked his glass again. "As many of you know, becoming a doctor requires not just intelligence, but tremendous sacrifice," he began. "Haley has demonstrated extraordinary commitment, and her mother and I couldn't be prouder. We wanted to give her something that represents the new journey she's beginning." He handed Haley a small box containing a key. My mother led her to the window, where a brand new white BMW 3 Series was parked, adorned with a massive red bow. "Oh my God!" Haley gasped, tears forming. "Are you serious?" "You've earned it," my mother said. "You need reliable transportation for your residency." The room erupted in applause. I stood quietly, genuinely happy for my sister, but acutely aware of the stark difference in how our achievements were valued. I hadn't expected a car, but some acknowledgement of my business success would have meant everything. When the BMW excitement finally quieted, my father unexpectedly called for attention again. "We have one more presentation to make," he announced, winking at my mother. "Megan also graduated recently, and we have something for her, too." My heart leapt. Perhaps they had been paying attention after all. Maybe they had finally recognized that my path, while different, had merit. My father disappeared into the hallway and returned, wheeling in a bicycle. Not a new one. A rusted, clearly second-hand men's bike with a faded basket attached to the handlebars. A small, pathetic bow was taped haphazardly to the frame. "For our entrepreneur," he announced with a chuckle. "We figured this is all you need since you're not going anywhere in life anyway. It's eco-friendly and budget-conscious. Perfect for a small business owner." The room erupted in laughter. My Uncle Roger slapped his knee. "Classic Richard," he exclaimed. "Always the practical joker." My mother stepped forward with a patronizing smile. "Now, don't look so serious, Megan. It's just a little humor. We know you've been playing at business, but this might actually be more reliable than that website of yours." More laughter. Someone took a photo of my stricken face. Haley looked uncomfortable, but remained silent, clutching her new BMW keys. I felt like I'd been doused in ice water. The casual cruelty, the public humiliation, the dismissal of everything I'd worked for. It crystallized years of feeling overlooked into one unbearable moment. With mechanical movements, I thanked them for the thoughtful gift, declined dessert, citing an early meeting, and wheeled the bicycle outside. It was raining, because of course it was. I had no way to transport the bike home other than riding it, so I did. In my formal dress and heels, I pedaled 3 miles through Boston traffic in the rain, the rusty chains squeaking with every rotation. By the time I reached my apartment, my dress was ruined. My makeup had washed away with a mixture of rain and silent tears, and something fundamental had shifted inside me. I propped the bicycle against my apartment wall and stared at it, water pooling around my feet. This bicycle wasn't just a thoughtless gift. It was a symbol of everything my parents thought of me and my capabilities. "Not going anywhere in life," I whispered to the empty room. In that moment, something hardened within me. The hurt transformed into cold, clear determination. I opened my laptop and pulled up the document I'd been working on, a business expansion plan I'd been hesitant to fully commit to because it required moving away from Boston. I hit send on an email to my investors with the subject line, "Ready to accelerate growth plan immediately." That rusty bicycle would be the last gift my parents ever gave me, and the most valuable one, though not in the way they intended. It became the catalyst that freed me from seeking their approval and pushed me to bet completely on myself. 2 weeks after the bicycle incident, I loaded everything I owned into a rented moving truck and headed west to Seattle. I had researched tech hubs where my limited investment money would stretch further than in Boston or San Francisco. Seattle offered the right combination of tech talent, quality of life, and affordability. I found a studio apartment in a less desirable part of the city, small and basic, but within my budget. And yes, the rusty bicycle came with me, not for transportation, but as a daily reminder of why I had left and what I was determined to prove. The first month was a lesson in loneliness. I knew no one in Seattle, had no family support, and was running a business that demanded constant attention. I worked 18-hour days from my kitchen table, expanding Personalize its reach while developing a more ambitious vision. Through a local tech meetup, I connected with Anthony Parker, a software developer who had recently left a major tech company. Over coffee, I explained my vision for transforming Personalize it from a custom merchandise platform into a comprehensive e-commerce solution for small businesses. Most e-commerce platforms are built for either individual sellers or large enterprises, I explained. Small businesses with 5 to 50 employees fall into a gap. The existing solutions are either too basic or too expensive and complex. Anthony was initially skeptical, but agreed to review my business model. 3 days later, he called me. "I think you're on to something," he said. "The technical architecture needs work, but the core idea is solid. Would you be interested in bringing on a technical co-founder?" And thus began our partnership. We renamed the company Emerge Commerce and worked out of my apartment and local coffee shops, rebuilding the platform from the ground up. Anthony's technical expertise complemented my business knowledge. Ramen noodles became our primary food group. We both took on freelance work to cover our basic living expenses while pouring every spare minute into Emerge Commerce. The $75,000 investment went primarily toward cloud infrastructure, legal fees, and basic marketing materials. Our breakthrough came 4 months in when we secured our first major client, a regional chain of boutique pet supply stores struggling with their online presence. Their existing e-commerce provider charged excessive transaction fees and couldn't integrate with their inventory system. "We're losing online sales to the big pet retailers," the owner explained during our pitch. "But we can't afford the enterprise solutions they use." It was exactly the gap we aimed to fill. We worked around the clock, customizing our platform for their specific needs. When their online sales increased by 43% in the first month on our platform, word began to spread. 3 more small retail chains signed on within weeks. We hired our first employee, a customer support specialist, followed quickly by a junior developer and a sales representative. The business now operated out of a small co-working space with our team of 5 crowded around a shared table. We were still far from luxurious, but the momentum was building. Anthony and I drew minimal salaries, reinvesting almost everything into growth. 9 months after arriving in Seattle, I received an unexpected email from a venture capital firm specializing in B2B software solutions. They had heard about Emerge Commerce from one of our clients and wanted to discuss potential investment. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. I spent every waking moment preparing our pitch deck, financial projections, and growth strategy. The night before the meeting, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror in the same dress I'd worn to Haley's graduation dinner, now the only formal outfit I owned. "You're not going anywhere in life," I whispered to my reflection, recalling my father's words. Then I squared my shoulders and added, "Watch me." The next day, we secured our first significant round of funding, $500,000 in exchange for 15% equity. This investment allowed us to move into a proper office space, hire specialized talent, and accelerate product development. Within a year of the funding, Emerge Commerce had grown to 20 employees, serving over 100 small to medium-sized businesses across the country. Our annual recurring revenue crossed the $1 million threshold, and we were approaching profitability, a rarity for startups at our stage. The success came with personal costs, though. I worked constantly, had few friends outside the business, and suffered from stress-induced insomnia. At the recommendation of our company's new HR director, I reluctantly began seeing a therapist to address the anxiety and unresolved family trauma that fueled my relentless drive. Dr. Mitchell, a straightforward woman in her 50s, helped me recognize how my parents' favoritism and dismissal had shaped my self-worth. "You've proven them wrong about your capabilities," she noted during one session. "But you're still allowing their assessment to drive you. Success as revenge is still giving them power over your choices." It was an uncomfortable truth. Every milestone Emerge Commerce achieved felt like another argument in an ongoing dispute with parents who weren't even aware of the debate. I had cut off all contact with my family since moving to Seattle, ignoring holidays and declining my mother's occasional text messages asking if I was still playing with that website. The therapy sessions helped me begin the process of disentangling my self-worth from both my parents' approval and the company's success. Slowly, I began developing a more balanced life, joining a rock climbing gym, making friends outside of work, and occasionally taking weekends completely off. As Emerge Commerce continued to grow, I found myself leading a company that was becoming a significant player in the e-commerce solution space. The rusty bicycle still hung on my office wall, no longer a reminder of humiliation, but as a symbol of how far I had come from that rainy night in Boston. 2 years after securing our initial venture funding, Emerge Commerce had transformed from a scrappy startup into a respected name. Our team expanded to 50 employees, occupying an entire floor of a downtown Seattle office building. Our software now powered the online operations of over 500 businesses nationwide. The company's most recent valuation placed it at just over $20 million, a figure that still seems surreal to me. My ownership stake represented more wealth than I had ever imagined possessing. I had upgraded from my tiny studio to a luxury apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound, a purchase I made not to flaunt success, but because after years of working from kitchen tables, I wanted a space that felt both comfortable and inspiring. While the business thrived, I had maintained my self-imposed separation from my family. Holidays passed with new traditions among friends or quiet retreats. I still attended therapy regularly, working through the complex emotions tied to my upbringing. The unexpected connection to my past came through my cousin Jessica, who contacted me on LinkedIn. After spotting my profile in a business magazine feature on tech founders under 30, "I almost didn't recognize you," she wrote. "No one in the family really talks about what you're doing, but this looks incredible. Would you be open to catching up over coffee? I'm in Portland now." I hesitated, but ultimately agreed. Jessica had never participated in the family's dismissal of my ambitions. We met at a quiet cafe near Pike Place Market. After an initially awkward greeting, Jessica's genuine interest in Emerge Commerce helped ease the tension. "This is seriously impressive," she said, looking through our company profile on her phone. "Uncle Richard and Aunt Barbara never mention any of this. It's always just updates about Haley's medical career." "How is Haley?" I asked, surprised by my own curiosity. Jessica's expression shifted. "That's part of why I wanted to connect. Actually, things aren't great. Haley's struggling with pretty severe burnout. She's talking about quitting medicine altogether." This was unexpected. In our family narrative, Haley was the success story. "What happened?" I asked. "She never wanted to be a doctor," Jessica said simply. "She wanted to please your parents. Now she's 3 years into a career she hates, working 80-hour weeks and having panic attacks in supply closets." I felt a complex mix of emotions: sympathy for my sister's situation, anger at our parents for their pressure, and a twinge of validation that their perfect plan hadn't led to happiness. Jessica continued with more family updates. My father had made several poor investment decisions, losing a significant portion of their retirement savings. My mother had scaled back her practice due to health issues. They had even downsized to a smaller home outside Boston. "They don't talk about it much," Jessica added, "but I think they're not as financially comfortable as they once were." Uncle Richard mentioned possibly delaying retirement. I absorbed this information with surprising detachment. There was no satisfaction in hearing about their difficulties, but no urge to reconnect or offer assistance either. The emotional distance I had cultivated served as an effective buffer. As Jessica and I parted, I considered reaching out to Haley directly. But before I could decide, a new business development jolted my attention back to Emerge Commerce. Our sales team had identified a major opportunity, the chance to bid on providing e-commerce infrastructure to a network of medical clinics across the Northeast. The potential contract was worth millions and would establish us in the healthcare sector, an area we had identified for expansion. As I reviewed the prospectus, a familiar name jumped out at me. Among the affiliated practices was Wilson Cardiovascular Associates, my father's private practice. This wasn't just any contract. Winning it would put Emerge Commerce directly in my family's professional orbit. The ethical implications were immediate and complex. Would pursuing this opportunity be seen as leveraging family connections, even though I had none? Would it appear as though I was deliberately targeting my father's business world? After careful consideration and consultation with our legal team, I decided that recusing myself from the bidding process would be the most appropriate approach. I would not be involved in presentations or negotiations, leaving those responsibilities to our Chief Revenue Officer and sales team. However, I would not withdraw Emerge Commerce from consideration. The opportunity aligned perfectly with our growth strategy, regardless of the personal connection. The decision made, I threw myself into other aspects of the business while our team prepared the bid. 3 weeks later, I received the news. Emerge Commerce had been selected as a finalist, pending a formal presentation to the hospital board and affiliated practice representatives. They were particularly impressed with our small business focus, our CRO reported. Apparently, their current provider treats them like an afterthought because they're not enterprise level. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had built a company specifically designed to value businesses that larger players dismissed, much as I had been dismissed within my own family. There's one complication, he added hesitantly. They've specifically requested that you personally lead the final presentation. Apparently, your background story from the magazine feature resonated with several board members. I sat with this development for several hours before making my decision. After years of separation, I would finally come face to face with my family again. Not as the dismissed daughter seeking approval, but as the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company they desperately needed. The symmetry felt almost too perfect, like the universe had orchestrated an opportunity for resolution I hadn't known I needed. Whether this encounter would bring closure or new complications remained to be seen, but I knew one thing with certainty. I would face my parents as my authentic self, successful on my own terms, and no longer defined by their assessment of my worth. The Eastern Hospital Network's headquarters occupied an imposing glass tower in downtown Boston, less than 2 miles from where I had grown up. As my Uber approached the building, I felt a surreal disconnect. This city had once been home, yet now felt like a foreign country I was visiting on business. My team and I had arrived the previous evening, checking into a hotel near the financial district. We had spent hours finalizing our presentation, ensuring every detail was perfect for what represented our largest potential contract to date. The deal was worth $4.5 million over 3 years, with the possibility of expansion. Are you nervous about the personal connection? Anthony asked as we rode the elevator to the conference floor. In the years since founding Emerge Commerce, he had become not just a business partner, but a trusted friend. One of the few people who knew my full family history. Not nervous, I replied, straightening my blazer. Just focused on the business opportunity. He gave me a knowing look, but didn't press further. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area where a group of people in business attire waited. My eyes immediately found my father, looking older than I remembered, his hair now completely gray. Beside him stood my mother, elegant as always, but with new lines around her eyes. And there was Haley, dressed in a white coat over professional attire, looking simultaneously polished and exhausted. None of them had noticed me yet. I took a deep breath, centered myself, and stepped forward with my hand extended toward the man I recognized as the hospital's chief operating officer. Good morning. I'm Megan Wilson, CEO of Emerge Commerce. Thank you for the opportunity to present our solution today. The COO shook my hand enthusiastically. Miss Wilson, we're excited to hear your presentation. Your company's approach to small and medium practices is exactly what our network has been looking for. As we exchanged pleasantries, I watched recognition dawn on my family's faces. My father's expression, shifted from confusion to shock. My mother's hand flew to her throat. Haley's eyes widened, her mouth forming a small O of surprise. The COO, oblivious to the unfolding family drama, continued with introductions. Let me introduce some key stakeholders. This is Dr. Richard Wilson, who heads our cardiology practices and will be representing the physician perspective today. My father stepped forward mechanically, extending his hand. Megan, he said, his voice strained. What a surprise. I shook his hand firmly, maintaining professional composure. Dr. Wilson, I replied with a polite nod. I look forward to addressing your practice's specific needs during our presentation. Similar awkward exchanges followed with my mother, who served on the hospital's community outreach board, and Haley, now a resident physician in the network. The other board members and executives, sensing an unusual tension but unaware of its source, quickly moved us toward the boardroom. The presentation itself was among my best. I presented Emerge Commerce's solution with clarity and confidence, demonstrating how our platform could seamlessly integrate with their existing systems while providing superior functionality at a lower cost than their current provider. My team expertly addressed technical questions while I focused on the strategic partnership aspects. Throughout the hour-long presentation, I avoided making direct eye contact with my family members, though I could feel their stares. My father asked several pointed questions about security protocols and downtime guarantees, more aggressively than necessary, but nothing I couldn't handle with professional poise. When the formal presentation concluded, the COO announced they would take a brief recess before reconvening to discuss next steps. As board members filed out, my parents and sister approached my team's table. You might have mentioned you were behind this company, my father said quietly, his tone carrying an edge of accusation. Would it have mattered? I asked evenly. The selection process was based on the merits of our platform, not personal connections. Of course, it would have mattered, my mother interjected. We're your family, Megan. You disappeared for years without a word, and now you show up like this, as a business proposition. I maintained my professional demeanor, aware that other attendees were within earshot. I'm here representing Emerge Commerce. Our personal history isn't relevant to whether our solution is the right fit for the hospital network. My father's expression hardened momentarily, then shifted to something I hadn't seen before, calculation. His tone suddenly warmed. Well, it's wonderful to see you so established, he said. Your mother and I always knew you had potential. Perhaps we could discuss a special arrangement for our practices given the family connection? A preferential rate structure, perhaps. The audacity was breathtaking. After years of dismissing my business aspirations, he now wanted to leverage our relationship for a discount. I felt a flash of anger, but channeled it into calm resolve. Our proposal represents our best offer, I replied. We pride ourselves on transparency and consistent pricing for all clients. I'm sure you can appreciate the importance of professional boundaries. Before he could respond, we were called back for the decision meeting. To my immense satisfaction, the board voted unanimously to proceed with Emerge Commerce as their new provider. Contracts would be finalized within the week. As the meeting concluded and attendees gathered their materials, my parents approached again, this time with forced smiles. We should celebrate, my mother suggested. Perhaps dinner tonight? It's been so long, and we have so much to catch up on. I knew what this was. Not a genuine desire for reconciliation, but an attempt to reassert their influence now that my success was undeniable. The realization brought not anger, but a sense of clarity and peace. I'm afraid I have a flight back to Seattle this evening, I said. Our team has several major projects in development. Surely, you can change your flight, my father pressed. Family should come first, especially after such a long separation. I met his gaze directly. Is that what you believed when you gave me a rusty bicycle and told me I wasn't going anywhere in life? His face flushed. My mother looked away uncomfortably. That was just a joke, Megan, she said weakly. You always were so sensitive. I gathered my presentation materials and nodded to Anthony, who was waiting by the door. Thank you both for your consideration of our proposal. Our account team will be in touch regarding implementation. Outside the building, a sleek black Bentley Continental GT waited at the curb. Not my usual vehicle, but one I had specifically arranged for this trip. The symbolism wasn't subtle, but after years of therapy, I had allowed myself this one indulgence in poetic justice. As I handed my briefcase to the driver, I heard my name called. Turning, I saw Haley hurrying toward me, her white coat flapping. "Megan, wait," she called, slightly out of breath. "Can we talk just for a minute?" I hesitated, then nodded to the driver to wait. Haley approached, looking both professional and profoundly tired. "I didn't know," she said without preamble, "about the bicycle, about what they said to you. I was so caught up in my own pressures that I never stood up for you. I'm sorry." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. "It wasn't your responsibility to fix how they treated me," I replied. "Maybe not, but I could have been a better sister." She glanced at the Bentley, then back at me with a small smile. "You really did it, didn't you? Everything they said you couldn't do." "I did," I acknowledged. "Though I've learned that success means more when you're not just proving someone wrong." Haley's smile faded. "I'm figuring that out the hard way. I hate medicine, Megan. Every day feels like walking underwater. But I've invested so many years, so much of my identity. For the first time in our adult lives, I saw my sister clearly. Not as the favored child, but as someone trapped in a life chosen for her rather than by her. It's never too late to change direction," I said, surprising myself with the gentleness in my voice. "Trust me on that." I reached into my bag and handed her my business card. "If you ever want to talk about options, or just to reconnect as sisters, call me. No pressure, no judgment." Haley looked at the card, then impulsively stepped forward and hugged me. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I always was." As I settled into the Bentley's leather seat, I watched my sister return to the building where our parents waited. The satisfaction I felt wasn't about the luxury car or the multi-million-dollar contract. It was the realization that I had finally broken free of defining myself through their expectations. Whether meeting them like Haley or defying them like I had, I directed the driver to the airport, leaving behind both the rusty bicycle of my past and the need to prove anything to anyone but myself. 6 months after the Boston contract, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Emerge Commerce's expanded headquarters, watching seaplanes take off and land on Lake Union. The view never failed to center me, particularly on momentous days like this one. "The lawyers just confirmed all conditions have been met," Anthony announced, joining me at the window. "The acquisition offer is final. $100 million, with guaranteed leadership positions for both of us for at least 3 years." The number still seemed unreal. A tech giant had approached us about acquiring Emerge Commerce. After months of negotiation and due diligence, today marked the official agreement. Our team of 65 employees would become part of a global corporation. Our technology would reach thousands more businesses, and our founding team would become multimillionaires. "Did you ever imagine this when you were riding that rusty bike through Boston?" Anthony asked, nudging my shoulder. I smiled at the reference. The bicycle still hung on my office wall, a conversation piece that had evolved from a painful reminder into something approaching a good luck charm. "Not specifically," I admitted. "But I knew I'd build something meaningful, with or without my family's belief." My relationship with therapy had evolved over the years from crisis management to ongoing personal growth. Dr. Mitchell had helped me recognize that while proving my parents wrong had provided initial motivation, true fulfillment came from creating something that genuinely helped others. Emerge Commerce had given thousands of small businesses the tools to compete in an increasingly digital marketplace. Each success story from a family-owned shop or local service provider meant more to me than any valuation figure. My phone buzzed with a text from Haley. "Just saw the acquisition news. So incredibly proud of you. Coffee next week when you're in Boston." The relationship with my sister had been cautiously rebuilding over the past 6 months. After our encounter in Boston, she had taken a leave of absence from her residency program to reassess her career path. We spoke regularly now, carefully navigating our shared history while establishing a new dynamic as adults. My parents had made multiple attempts to re-enter my life since the hospital contract. Their interest in reconnection suspiciously aligned with my rising public profile. Business magazines had featured Emerge Commerce, and a particularly flattering profile in Forbes had included the bicycle story, though I had been careful not to identify my parents by name. "Your father called the office again," my assistant had reported last week. "He mentioned something about investment advice." I had established clear boundaries around these contact attempts. I wasn't interested in a relationship based on what I could now provide them financially or socially. My mother's birthday card had included a handwritten note suggesting they had always believed in me deep down. A revision of history I wasn't willing to accept. Through therapy, I had learned that forgiveness didn't require reconciliation. I could release the anger and hurt without inviting the same dynamics back into my life. I had forgiven them for my own peace, but maintained the distance necessary for my continued health. The acquisition announcement triggered another round of outreach, congratulatory messages that subtly emphasized our family connection now that it carried social capital. I responded with brief, polite acknowledgments, but continued declining invitations for visits or deeper engagement. I've been thinking about what's next, I told Anthony as we turned from the window toward the conference room where our team waited to celebrate beyond the transition period with the new parent company. Let me guess. Another startup? He asked with a knowing smile. Not exactly. I'm launching a foundation to support young entrepreneurs from unsupportive backgrounds, mentorship, seed funding, emotional resources, the things I had to find on my own. The Wilson Foundation would focus particularly on first-generation business owners and those whose families discourage their entrepreneurial ambitions. I had already committed $10 million from my acquisition proceeds to fund its first 5 years of operation. In the conference room, champagne corks popped as our team celebrated years of hard work culminating in tremendous success. I raised my glass in a toast to building something that matters, I said, and to believing in yourself when others don't. Later that evening, alone in my office after the celebration, I stood before the rusty bicycle, tracing its weathered handlebars with my fingertips. What had once been a symbol of humiliation had transformed into a powerful reminder of resilience. I thought of the young entrepreneurs who would soon receive support from the foundation. People whose families or circumstances had told them, "You're not going anywhere," but who refused to accept that limitation. In helping them navigate their journeys, perhaps I would find even deeper meaning in my own success. The bicycle would hang in the foundation's office, I decided, not as a monument to family wounds, but as inspiration for those at the beginning of their own journeys. Sometimes the people who believe in you least give you the greatest motivation to succeed. But eventually, you learn to believe in yourself so completely that their opinions lose all power. I picked up my phone and drafted a message to Haley. Looking forward to coffee next week. I have some foundation ideas I'd love your perspective on. My sister had found her own path away from our parents' expectations. She'd left medicine to pursue a master's degree in public health policy, a field she had discovered genuine passion for. Our shared experience of breaking free from prescribed paths had become common ground for rebuilding our relationship. As I turned off the office lights and prepared to leave, I reflected on the greatest lesson of my journey. Success isn't measured by the car you drive past your critics or even the businesses you build. It's measured by the peace you find within yourself and the positive impact you create for others. The rusty bicycle had taken me further than any Bentley ever could. So what about you? Have you ever had someone underestimate your potential or dismiss your dreams? How did you respond? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about overcoming obstacles and finding success on your own terms. Remember, sometimes the most powerful motivation comes from those who doubt you the most. Thank you for watching, and remember, your path is yours alone to define.